Hey there, it's Sonia. Welcome back to my channel. I actually hope you can see me properly. I'm constantly having to duck with this camera because the legs are a little bit weird, so I kind of always have to adjust the angle, but I'm trying to get it fixed. And I am so sorry if you actually hear any noise in the background. I live in a very noisy city and I'm recording this on a weekend and they have like some activity in my neighborhood. So it's actually pretty noisy and I will try to speak a little bit more clearer and a bit louder. But yeah, welcome back. Glad to have you here. And today we'd just like to talk a little bit about something that I was thinking about recently and I've been observing as well. This concept of of wanting to find love, but going about it in all the kind of like the wrong ways, right? Looking for love in all the wrong places. And instead of going after what you actually want and going after what you know actually aligns with your soul's growth, you actually entertain a lot of the wrong guys and you entertain like people that just breadcrumb and are just incompatible with you. So I kind of want to share this in a perspective of a story that my friend actually told me recently, and it's something that actually she's going through currently. So recently, my girlfriend was kind of narrating some events from her dating life. She had met a guy, I think it was on Bumble. And after chatting like really consistently for about a month, he suddenly went MIA. He suddenly just stopped texting her. Like she would kind of like just start conversations like just like they would at the beginning of their dates, of getting to know each other, and he would just not reply. He just basically he's just ghosted her, right? And she tried, kept trying to reach out like constantly, and there was just no response. So she was really troubled by it, and they she was saying like they had a really good connection. They had the same faith. They were in the same like religion, and they shared a lot of similar like things, at least from whatever they discovered about themselves in the first month. Okay, she's really troubled by it, and then I think a month after that, so it's kind of like 4 weeks of constant talking, right? And then he just disappeared for like a month. And then he came back suddenly and he was like, oh, like, I'm so sorry. I was just like super caught up with work. Um, and then he apologized, said it was like a really bad thing for him to do, blah, blah, blah. And then he just proceeded, like, they continued talking as if like that whole ghosting thing didn't happen. And I was concerned. I mean, I found it incredibly weird. And from then on, he then proceeded to send like really incredibly romantic stuff to her. Like he was texting a lot of like romantic messages, a lot of like things that couples like a couple would actually do if they actually said that they were in the dating phase. But these two people are not. They're just talking. And he started texting her a lot of like very lovey-dovey like stickers and gifs and stuff like that, and she's now feeling trouble about it again. Okay, and the reason is because she doesn't actually really feel the same way. And like whenever he sends her something lovey-dovey, she's like, oh, I'm just not really feeling it at this moment. And that whole like 1 month of ghosting thing still really bothers her. And but at the same time she's also kind of blaming like because like she can kind of feel him like holding back his feelings, right? And she's kind of blaming herself for it. And she's thinking like, oh, maybe if she kind of is a little bit more accepting of his lovey-doveyness and encourages it a little bit more, um you know uh yeah, then maybe he might actually open up more. I am not actually really getting the logic, okay? And my friend is a really amazing, usually very logical and rational person. But what she was actually going through wasn't really quite making sense to my friend and other friends, in the group. Um, let's kind of talk a little bit about, what actually goes on, because I think this is actually really common in the dating culture nowadays. Um, the key things that are actually happening in this entire exchange, okay, can really explain why even some very incredibly smart women like my friend, who are actually great people otherwise, great personality, treats people really well, is just a very, very nice, decent person, okay, and has great values, still get, stumped by dating and still get relationships wrong. Okay, it's the first thing. And the second thing is that everything that is happening in this situation is really what is wrong with the dating culture nowadays. So there are a couple of things that I actually really want to talk about here, using this story and this experience. And the very first thing, my friend actually mentioned the strong connection that she actually had with this guy, and I really wanted to kind of talk about this connection thing. A lot of people actually, when they talk about their relationships, they're like, oh, I have this like amazing connection with this guy. It's like we have shared interests, we can talk for hours, we can talk for days, we can text like whatever. Okay, basically saying that the connection is amazing. So in the equation, connection is amazing means the person is amazing, means that we would have an amazing relationship. Wrong. Okay, and let me just explain what is actually really going on here. When you actually have a connection with someone, you are actually feeling something, right? Because you are interacting with this person, and maybe they are actually telling you stuff about themselves that you are like really resonating with, and really like you're feeling a real like connection and a real like similarity with. um you kind of share the same hobbies, possibly, or the same face, like my friend, and you feel like you're very similar. So a lot of connection is actually based off like sparking of similarities, because so many people in this world, but yet I'm talking to you and we share all these similarities. So it kind of sparks off a connection, and sometimes you just meet people and you just have that chemistry. You hear that word very often as well, in general, and even in especially in dating. But connection and chemistry sometimes can be, firstly, can be manufactured. Okay, and what do I mean by that is, as someone who actually talks a lot in my day job, I can very easily manufacture rapport or build rapport with someone that I actually don't really feel, but I'm just building rapport because I have to, because there's something that I need to do with this person. Um, and a lot of the times when we are trying to actually like you know uh build rapport, or we are trying to like just connecting with someone, we do not actually really consider the fact that the person could actually be kind of like putting a front on, right? And they could actually be a really good conversationalist. They could actually be really good at generating chemistry with people. Some people are just like that. They're just very charismatic, and they are able to talk and carry themselves really well in public and with other people. But they actually are not really quite feeling the chemistry or the connection that you're feeling. So sometimes the connection and chemistry that we feel is very subjective, and it's only us feeling it. The other person doesn't feel it, or not as much as we think we do. So we are over here thinking we have this amazing chemistry and connection, so we have to be together. The other person probably doesn't feel the same way, and sometimes they don't feel it as strongly as you, so they don't feel that sort of connection that you're actually feeling and thinking that they have to be together with you. So that's something what is sometimes what is happening here. Another aspect of this is, instead of actually always kind of talking about chemistry and connection, when you actually really want a serious relationship with someone, or you want to actually see them for a longer term, what you actually really need to be looking out for is two things: commitment, the level of commitment, and the stage of commitment, as well as compatibility. So what do I mean by commitment and the stage of commitment? So there are different levels of commitment, right? um, the thing about commitment is you have to ensure that they are actually on the same page as you. Okay, in terms of like where you guys stand as a couple, where they would want to be in a relationship. Is this the right time for them? What do they think about relationships in general? Does it actually fit your values? Like, for example, maybe they want to be committed to at a very kind of like dating, just date and see where this goes kind of thing. They are okay with that kind of commitment. But you actually want a even more like serious commitment. Like, you kind of want to date for marriage, and it's a decision of like whether you get married or not at the end, really like weighing in on it. So commitment is great, but sometimes we can be committed to very different things, and it's actually very important to have that conversation early on in your dates and early on in your relationship, before you actually proceed further on. Because if you're someone that's actually only committed to say, I'm gonna see you like once a month, I don't really think we need to be involved any more further than that. But you actually want to see like each other like 3 times a week. I want to see whether this thing goes to marriage. You're actually both committed, but in a different way, and not you're not aligned basically. So you guys just, especially you, the person that has a little bit more at stake, ends up wasting a lot of time. The second thing to actually consider is compatibility. And a lot of people kind of consider this only at the later stages, but this is something you have to constantly be checking for from the beginning. Okay, so things about compatibility involve like, are your values actually similar to one another? Okay, are your lives actually heading in the same general direction? Okay, are you willing to help each other grow? What is your outlook generally on life, on marriage, on kids? Okay, another thing, on finances, on a career. What does it mean to him and what does it mean to you? And I'm saying him because I'm talking in the perspective of a heterosexual woman actually dating a heterosexual man, but it could also occur in any kind of relationship where you identify as masculine or feminine. Um, so when you have an amazing connection or chemistry, but it doesn't work out because you both just don't share the similar values, or you're not headed in the same life direction, you don't see life the same way, you wouldn't be happy together. And it doesn't really matter about the chemistry and the connection, because if you're not compatible, you'll be fighting about like the larger ticket items like in life. Okay, it doesn't matter what amazing connection you have, it would not be like, you wouldn't feel that connected when you're always kind of like butting heads over the bigger stuff. So what my friend could actually be figuring out right now is whether this guy is actually willing to give her the commitment that she craves. So she's someone that is actually really into a relationship and really wants to be serious. And marriage is not so much on the cards for her, but she really wants to be serious. But it doesn't seem like the guy is actually at that level of commitment. Like maybe he's committed to kind of like talking to her every day and being very lighthearted about the messaging and the texting and the stickers, but he just doesn't want that next stage of commitment, right? Um, the second thing that I really want to talk about, and it's super important, is the ghosting thing. Okay, so there are sometimes like different schools of thought here, because some people are like, oh, it's very okay to ghost someone early on in the date because you don't know each other very well yet, and I kind of agree with that as well, because you're not super invested in each other. Ghosting or disappearing, or you don't really actually have that connection yet. And that tie to each other. So kind of ghostings are kind of normal, because some people, like a lot of people nowadays, are always dating multiple people at the same time. So whenever they ghost you, I kind of take it as like, oh, they're not very into me and they met someone better, or they're just busy, or they're just, they're just not very, very committed to this interaction that they have going on with me. There's another school of thought was like, okay, if ghosting someone like all the time, and especially early on, and you're not investing early on, it actually means that you're not serious about the relationship. And I do kind of also see the validity in that, and I'm actually more in that school of thought. And what is actually interesting about my friend's situation is that they have been constantly, like every day, they have been texting for like hours every day. I'm not sure, I can't remember if they were calling each other, but they're texting each other every day, and the frequency and the amount, the quantity was actually high. So going from that to completely just disappearing off the face of the earth, um, I personally think that's very rude. Okay, and I personally think that it's a not great characteristic to actually have, and I wouldn't want that in a partner. Because to me, ghosting someone so early on and then coming back and acting as if like, oh, it's just a small thing and I'm sorry, and then you just continue sending like lovey-dovey stuff, to me it actually reeks of dishonesty, and I feel that it isn't a great way to establish trust, especially when you are just starting to get to know each other. Um so what actually made us kind of also question his intentions is, what actually went on when the person ghosted? Like, what was he actually doing when he actually disappeared from texting my friend for 1 month? He couldn't even reply her text and said that he was busy or that he met someone else. He just disappeared. That's very cowardly to me. And because he was in this like foreign country the whole time, we were just kind of wondering like whether was he reaching back out again because he was just bored, or maybe during that 1 month he was actually seeing someone else, which is completely fine. Just be honest about it. Seeing someone else, the thing didn't work out, and then he came back to my friend again. And this guy is actually in his like 40s. And being in your 40s, okay, I know that age doesn't really determine anything, yeah, but being near in your 40s and not being able to even communicate your intentions and being so like dodgy about it, I feel that it's not a good sign. And then again, for my friend, it kind of also begs the question, and someone asked in the friendship group, we were actually asking her like, why would you actually take back someone who actually did this to you, right? Personally, I wouldn't. Okay, as much as I know that we don't really owe like each other our lives at the beginning of the date, suddenly disappearing actually, after like that amount and the frequency and that kind of intensity of texting, and I've reached out like multiple times to actually check on you, and you just don't even bother to reply, not even a yes or no, like just nothing. To me, it's a big no-no in my book. And I think that people who actually do that tend to have a pattern of doing that. You don't just start ghosting someone out of nowhere. It's probably something that you did before, and especially in the dating like culture, you probably did it before and would probably do it again. Okay. And when someone comes back after they ghosted you, and it's like at the beginning of things, right? Like my friend's situation is currently at right now too. I would actually proceed with a lot of caution. Okay, and proceed with a lot of caution because this person really just disappeared. Okay, and now he's back. Proceed with a lot of caution if you actually really want to continue dating him. And another aspect here that I really want to talk about as well is the bread crumbing and the fast forwarding and the future faking. Okay, a lot of people do this, and also one more thing I want to add here: the love bombing. So a lot of people actually do this in dating. Okay, some of the signs. Okay, so when someone very early on in the interaction, you haven't really established like trust and safety and security and that real like bond, okay, not just texting but that real bond with each other, like getting to know one another, and suddenly he starts like expressing a lot of like physical affection, promises an amazing future together, although like you're kind of not even together now. And when he's promising and saying all these things and love bombing you every single day, and your relationship hasn't really quite built up to that point of investment as well as attachment and connection, and compatibility and commitment. Okay. And by the way, my friend has actually never met this guy in person, so it's completely over text. I'll talk about that later. Whenever someone actually kind of talk too much about the future, when your present is not actually rooted in any way, it's not grounded, you don't even know each other. This is actually a classic sign of future faking and fast forwarding. So they'll kind of like tell you stuff like, oh, next time we will do this, and next time we will do that. Like a year from now, we will actually like get married, and then we will name our kids like we have like twin boys, and then we name our kids like Tom and Jerry and stuff like that. Um, that's kind of a bit too soon. Okay, so whenever you have a feeling that things are happening a little bit too fast and too soon for the realities of the relationship right now, that's actually future faking and fast forwarding. So you will kind of get a sense, okay? And the thing is that it's very difficult sometimes to keep your wits about you, because keeping yourself grounded and level headed is what will actually kind of make you realize that this person is actually future faking me. It can be very easy to fall into their trap, and because you're so carried away by this future or this vision that they are trying to build up with you, right? It's this like big dream. Although you may not feel the same way at all. It happens because you get very carried away with the fantasy, right? And this is how people just kind of go along with it, and they themselves get all caught up and all swept up in the relationship, and before they know it, they're like, oh my god, I'm not even like good with this person. I don't even really want to be with them, but like they have been promising me all these things, and sounds so amazing. I have to be together with them, and then along the way they're like, okay, something's not right. And sometimes when you have spent too much of time with the person and too much of invested a lot of your emotions, and it turns out to be like that, it can be very tricky to get out of the situation. This is why people sometimes struggle to actually leave relationships that are very that they've invested a lot in, although the investment or the person doesn't turn out to be very good. Okay. So all these actions, like, it can make it feel as if the person is very intense, very very into you, and can make you doubt yourself as well, like how my friend is actually acting right now, right? So she's like, oh, this person is like so into me and sending all these like lovey-dovey stuff, why do I not feel the same way? And she is then starting to have this pattern of like forcing herself to act the same way that he does, kind of like mirroring his behaviors and his actions, although she doesn't even feel that way at all. And it's kind of scary, because I've been in situations like this before, and you just go along with it, and in the end you kind of like find yourself in a relationship together with a person who actually doesn't even really like you, because they're just like impression managing and future faking at the beginning, right? So these are things to look out for. And another thing that I actually want to actually mention as well is the thing about long distance relationships. So my friend is technically not in a relationship, but she's in this long distance thing with this guy because he's like in another country and they have never met each other. Okay. The thing about long distance is sometimes it actually attracts a lot of emotionally unavailable people. Okay, and it can be a recipe for fantasy relationships where two people or one person is just imagining a lot of the stuff that is happening in the relationship when the thing is not actually happening, right? Because when you're long distance, it adds a little bit to the fast forwarding nature because you don't see each other that often, so a lot of your interactions are actually online. So sometimes you kind of like it pushes forward a lot of the feelings that that would actually organically develop when you see each other in person, but when you are actually talking to each other online, or it's a very very virtual thing, you actually don't really quite feel it, but because you're very carried forward by it, you just kind of start talking and behaving that way. Okay. The thing is that nothing can really, in my opinion, begin if there are no face-to-face interactions and you've not seen each other in person. If not interacted with this person like face to face, there isn't actually really anything happening, and you're just like kind of just talking to one another. Um, so do watch out for that. If you ever like are in a long distance relationship, do set those like milestones. Do see each other, and don't just keep it online because it's very easy to kind of just say whatever you want online, do whatever you want, but the real like commitment, the real like compatibilities, you sometimes don't get to see because you're not in the same space as this person. So you don't really get to see things like, oh, how do they actually treat a waiter, in a restaurant? How are they like with their friends? How are they like with their family? You don't really see that sometimes, and it can really like push forward a lot of feelings that are actually sometimes not really there, and it can also make your observations a little bit delayed because you don't get to see these things in person. So just something to take note of for long distance relationships. I don't think they are completely doomed like a lot of people that are out there think, because I've seen long distance relationships like a couple like in my friendship circle really work out. But the both of you have got to be on the same page. There needs to be a lot of trust, and you got to see each other like kind of like frequently as well, like kind of like on the miles, like kind of meeting milestones in that sense. So you want to fall in love, but this is the dating culture that we have to deal with nowadays, right? And it's a very unfortunate thing because with the online dating and dating apps and stuff like that, and people just being like, things just being very transient now, a lot of the things in the world is actually changing. So you kind of get exposed to people like the guy that my friend is seeing, right? And the thing is, so many people are online dating and dating so many people at the same time. They are currently like socialized to be this way. Like ghosting came about with all these online stuff, because people were like seeing multiple people and then they started ghosting some people, just like disappearing on some people and not being held accountable for their actions. Okay, so this guy, I don't know, I'm just thinking that he probably wasn't like that before, but maybe during this entire dating, age, he has been, having trying these patterns on people and nobody has called him up for it, and yeah, he's just gotten away with it, and this is why he's continuing this with my friend. And the thing about like the downside of online dating these days is that you can be really exposed to many people like that. In the past, you had you could see people meet the person in person and you kind of vet the person from there, and you don't have all these like online distractions where like someone's meeting you in person and then they are also on an online app and they're also seeing other people on the app. The thing is that you don't really know because so many people have so many options nowadays, or that's what we think. I'll talk about that in another video. That we are now exposed to a lot of people like that. And when you meet so many people like that, like you meet so many ghosters, you meet so many people who are breadcrumbing and then they turn out to be like not who they said they were, it can lead you to feeling very disillusioned and very disheartened about the dating scene. This is why so many people, and I see so many women around me, they just are completely like, just like, okay, dating culture really sucks. And I understand it really sucks, but I do believe that there is someone for everyone out there. Your someone is out there, but you just, now with all the distractions and all these other things you have to manage, unfortunately, we all take a little bit of a longer time to get to that person. Okay, most of us. Okay, and we have a lot more of things to actually look out for when we are kind of like looking out for this person. Okay, in the past, you just, you're like, oh, he's decent and I've met his family and his friends and then we are going to get a house. It's very simple in the past, but it's no longer like that. The world has changed, so we change along with it, and we do there are ways of kind of filtering out like who is actually good for you or not. And I think one of the biggest ways that you kind of have to do that is to really get to know yourself, this is really like the technological age is really a time to really get to know yourself, because when you're not grounded in yourself, you don't know your values, and you don't set very good boundaries with yourself, you don't set that kind of respect, the level of respect that you have for yourself, you kind of, whenever you interact with someone else, especially in very sensitive like arenas like dating or at work or making money, manifesting something, it's when this kind of like things then come out and test us, right? And when you don't have a certain boundary, and you don't have kind of like a sense of the sort of values, okay, that you want to see in a dating partner, it can make you very like susceptible to people's like tricks, people's breadcrumbing, or people's like texts, and once they love bomb you, you're gone. It can happen to anybody, and which is why it doesn't really mean that you are smart, you are like very capable, you are financially independent, whatever. All these dating stuff, it can still come out, and it can still bother you, because we have to really really know ourselves really really well. And whenever you meet people that have amber flags, that have red flags, stop talking to them, stop interacting, because interactions are important, because they are an energy exchange. And maybe I'll make a video about this, but whenever you interact with someone, you have intimacy with them, you have sex with them, you spend time with them, whatever you do with them, you are giving them your energy, and they are kind of giving them yours as well. And there's a mix, and there's a dynamic to that. So whenever that happens, okay, it can really kind of affect who you are as a person. This is why over time sometimes we see like people just kind of like couples kind of just becoming like each other, right? And it's not necessarily always a bad thing, okay? But when you don't have the right person in your life, and you're kind of mixing energies with each other, you can kind of like affect each other in a not great way. So it's actually really important that we are very discerning about who we let into our lives, and be very very clear about who you are as a person, your values, your boundaries, your whatever is important to you. Make sure that it's all set, so that when you actually meet someone, you can actually evaluate them a little bit better, and you wouldn't be so caught up in all these like stuff that actually goes on that are just noise and distractions. You actually know how to evaluate whether someone is a good dating partner for you or not. So with that, I just come to the end of the video. I actually wanted to do this in 15 minutes, but knowing me, I always ramble. But I hope this was helpful. And if you feel like you are struggling with something, or you really feel like you want to move from wherever you are currently in your dating or your love life into something that's a little bit like more powerful, step into your power, date someone that you actually really want, but you can't really figure out like where the roadblocks are. My one-on-one session is actually available, so do DM me on Instagram. I'll actually put my handle in the description down below. I have also several books available, and it's all on like relationship stuff, on limerence and retroactive jealousy, and I have some more coming up. And I have another on self-esteem as well. So if you want to check that out, it's all in the links down below. Um, I'll see you in the next video, and hopefully my camera will be working in the next video, but I'll see you in the next video, and I hope that this was helpful, and you have a nice day ahead, as well as a week ahead. I'll see you soon, okay? This is Sonia signing off. Goodbye.